I go back a long, long time in beekeeping. Like you can see up on the slides. Here I am with Moses at the parting of the seas. And to my left, you can see my bee veil. I was ready to go out and work with my bees. So needless to say, I've been beekeeping for a long, long time. And I brought with me today some of my friends, about 20 or 30 honeybees here. So you can get a up and close personal look after. I'll pass them around, and you can see them walking around in there, and they accompany me on my trips around the state as I speak. They enjoy riding, and they enjoy a nice afternoon ride. So anyway, honeybees, as most of you probably know, are dying at alarming rates. We're losing our honeybees by the millions. We really don't know why. They have a lot of reasons, but we're trying to pinpoint some of the reasons the bees are dying. Because if we lose our honeybees, we lose our food. 40% of all the food you eat is pollinated by the honeybees. So we're trying to save them. I'm involved as part of a Harvard study to see what's happening to our honeybees and seeing what we can do to save them. So I'm going to give you a little introduction here about honeybees. Go ahead, Dave. So as you can see, I started when I was a youngster on the left side there. There I am at age 5 with my dad working honeybees back in the 1950s. So again, you can see the time period I've been keeping bees my whole life. This is what a beehive looks like. When you open up a beehive, there's about 75,000 to 80,000 bees, all crawling around, looking around, working, doing their own thing. They all have a job to do in the hive. Mr. Duchamp, former colleague of mine at Northbridge.
How you doing?
All right. So, if you open up a beehive, you can see 80,000, 75,000, 80,000 honeybees. Well, that's pretty scary to a lot of people. They, go near the beehive and they see 10 bees and they're scared. How often do I bring the little package of bees in here and, oh, bees, I'm allergic, or bees, will they sting me? Well, all bees, wasps, hornets, honeybees have stingers. That's their defense. But honeybees are very docile and they're not going to sting. They want to get pollen and nectar from the field so they can support their life here in the beehive. And while they're doing that, they're pollinating our crops. In other words, a honeybee will go around, fly 2 to 3 miles from its hive, get the pollen that is a high-protein food for the honeybee so they can raise their young big and strong, and then they collect the nectar. They get this long tongue, suck the nectar out, and get the nectar to make honey, which the adult bees eat and use for energy, to fly, to heat the hive. Go ahead, Dave. So go ahead. Now, this is what a perfect area would look like for honeybees. Large fields with a lot of flowers that they can collect nectar and pollen to support the hive. That's the field bee's job. All they do every day, go out, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And every time when they come back, all they're bringing back is a pinhead of nectar. That's it. Some people, they get, this much honey, but a pinhead of nectar is what they bring back. And they bring back pollen on their pollen sacs, which you'll see here in a minute.
Oh, absolutely.
You can see here the bee working the flower, sticking its tongue in, sucking up the sweet nectar. And in the hive, there's 3 types of bees. Obviously the worker bees. These are the females. On the right side, they do all the work. The females that they can't lay fertile eggs. They can't lay eggs. So they do all the work, but they're females. On the left side is the queen. She lays 12 to 1,500 eggs a day. Can you imagine if a chicken did that? Everybody want to be chicken farmers. But 12 to 1,500 eggs a day to keep that population going, because every 6 weeks, bees die. They give up their life. They wear their wings out, flying back and forth for the good of the hive. And in the middle is the drone. That's the male bee. They just kick back in the hive and relax. They're there for one purpose, to mate with the new queen when she emerges, if they produce a new queen. The new queen flies up to get mated, and all these drones just follow. And they mate with her about 150 yards up in the air. A bunch of them, about 15 and 20, get to mate with them. So it's kind of, but I don't want to go any further on a mating talk. That gets my X-rated talk, and you girls are a little too young, gentlemen, to hear that. But that's the drone. This about 5% of the hive is drones. They always keep them there in case they need to make a new queen and they need to get her mated. Go ahead. And here you can see two field bees. See a close-up of what a honeybee looks like. Here, they've got their proboscises, their tongues together. One's taken the nectar that the other one brought back from the field and deposited it in the cells here on this frame. They build wax comb. Each cell is six-sided, and they put that tongue, they put the nectar in here, then they fan all night and get all the excess water out, so it's a nice thick substance, you know, that you see here, called honey. Go ahead, Dave. Now here also you can see a field bee that's a guard bee at the entrance. You can see this bee is guarding the entrance to the hive and won't let any other bees, any other bumblebees, any wasp hornets into that hive. They'll sting them to death. They protect. They're the guards. They protect the hive from any invasion. If a mouse tries getting in, they'll sting it up and kill it. And they sacrifice their life. When they do sting, they die because they got a little barb at the end of the stinger. Go ahead. And like I say, here you can see a house bee cleaning. They're very clean. That's why, because they produce the honey, which is food that we eat, and in there it's immaculate inside of a beehive. They keep everything polished, clean. Go ahead. Here's a bee bringing water back to the hive. Going out, collecting water, and bringing it back. Like any other living being, bees need water to survive. And they bring it back to the hive so the bees in the hive can drink. And also, they keep it at 93 in that hive. So if it gets too hot, guess what? They go get water, put the droplets of water on the tops of the frames, and then fan like crazy to evaporate the water. And what does that do? Cool down the hive if it gets too hot. And now, in the wintertime when it's 20 degrees outside, they eat a lot of honey, and they rub their wings, and guess what they're producing? Heat. They keep it at 93 degrees. That's amazing. To me, that's was the most amazing things about bees. 20 below zero, and they can keep it at 93 by eating honey, creating energy, and eating that hive so that their young can hatch. Because if it falls below 93, their young will chill and they'll die. So they have a very delicate balance in there with temperature. Go ahead, Dave. And here you can see a bee with its scent gland. All the bees in this hive have the same scent, the same pheromones. They smell the same. They can tell if that bee belongs in the hive by the smell. When they're coming in, bees are coming in with pollen, nectar. The guard bees smell, they can tell right away if that belongs in the hive. If it doesn't, they'll go after it. Go ahead. Here's a nurse bee. The nurse bees feed the young. That's the larva. See the little white larva in the cells? She lays the eggs, they hatch into a larva, and once they hatch into a larva, the adult bees chew up honey and pollen and feed them.
Everything's on the
So they can grow big and strong, and that nurse bee is feeding that young larva. They feed all these larvae. It's a very intricate system. Go ahead. And that's just the role of all the jobs that are done in a beehive. And when you go into a beehive and notice a beehive, every bee is doing its own thing. If we could only learn from the bees. Great teamwork. They're great workers as a team. They all know what to do and do it. They'll sacrifice their life if they have to by stinging whatever invader comes in. Right. And there's the drone. See the big eyes, big husky, just like in any species. The male is usually the bigger, and like I say, there's only about 5% of them. The sad part is the females know that they sat back, kicked around all summer, eating the honey they brought in. So guess what? It comes October, they kick all the drones out except about half or 1% they keep in the hive. The rest of them all, they drag them right out. They won't let them in. And so the poor guys freeze out in the cold. My wife says that's what they should do in the human race. You know? Here's the queen. The queen is the lifeblood of the hive. 1,200 to 1,500 eggs a day she lays. Here you can see she's marked. We've got a mark so you can identify the queen. And you can see here the white mark. And all the bees take care of her. They groom her, they feed her, they do whatever she needs done. All she does goes around laying eggs all day, all night. They don't sleep. Go ahead, Dave. And here's the queen looking into the cell. One of these cells, she's got her head right in there and looking to see if it's clean and polished. And if it is, go ahead. She lays the egg. See the egg? That's only thread. This is magnified. A friend of mine that took that. That's magnified. It's thread. You know how thin the thread is? That's the egg of a honeybee. And here you can see it. In 3 days it hatches into a little larva like that, and that's the one they feed. The adult bees feed it, the nurse bees. Go ahead. And there's all the eggs in the cells. She fills up all of these cells. Go ahead, Dave. And see how they hatch into a little larva inside the cell? 3 days they hatch out. Go ahead. They get bigger. Nurse bees feed them. They get bigger and bigger. Go ahead. In 7 days they cap it over and it turns into a pupa. And go ahead. And finally, after 21 days, look at this little bee struggling to get its way out and start life. And he comes out. You can see him take that first breath when they come out and they start life. And for the next 6 weeks, they work themselves to death. They sacrifice themselves for the good of the hive. Here you can see I gave her a name, Susie. And that's Susie. You notice how cute? Big brown eyes, isn't she cute? Go ahead. And that's the cycle they go through. Now, to survive, they need those two items, pollen and nectar. Once the bee is 2 weeks old, they say, okay, it's time for you to be a field bee now, no longer a house bee. And every day you're in and out, in and out, in and out. Maybe 30, 40 times a day, coming in back and forth, going out to the field, to flowers, flying 2 and 3 miles to get there. They just wear their wings out for the good of the hive because they know in the winter they have to have a surplus of food or they're going to starve. Go ahead. And see how they bring the pollen back? I got a bag of pollen here after you can finish lunch where we can take a look at some of this. These are the pollen that I collected this spring that the bees brought back. It's the pollen that they need for their protein. Go ahead. See how they fly back? As they go around flower to flower, they collect that pollen. It gets all over the little hairs on their back. And they take these ratchets on their legs and put it into their pollen baskets and collect it and fly back with twice their weight. They're navigators, amazing navigators. Sometimes the pollen is twice the weight of the bee. We couldn't ever do that, you know. They fly back with twice. You imagine putting 2 of you on your shoulders and trying to jump off the ground. Never mind. Go ahead. And they pack the pollen in there for the winter months and to raise their young. Right. And they go to every flower. And when they're doing that, they cross-pollinate so we can get our fruits, our vegetables, get all our products, food products, 40%. 40% of our food. So if we lose the honeybees, we are in trouble. As Albert Einstein said, if we lose the honeybee, in 4 years, man will be dead. It's from starvation, worldwide food crisis. And the nectar is a nice sweet substance. The nectar, what they do is they collect in their honey stomach, they bring it back to the hive, deposit it in the cells, and like I said earlier, all night they fan and fan and fan to get there, because nectar has 80% water content. So in order to make honey, they have to fan it and they have to put an enzyme from the back of the head that cures the honey and helps it to ripen, and that's what honey is. A very healthy, nature's perfect food, right from the flower to you. In other words, what happens is the bees will take, fan, put an enzyme, and give us honey. Of course, we like to say we borrow it, but we really steal it from them. Okay, go ahead, Dave. Then when it's ripe, they cap it over with wax. Here you can see a frame of honey. This is a frame of honey that was produced. Look at how perfect the capping is. Nice, you can feel that. It's all wax they coat over. And of course, what we do is they only need 80 pounds to survive the winter. They usually produce about 150. So we get to keep about 70 pounds of it. We take an uncapping knife, uncap it like paper thin. Then we put this in a machine called an extractor, and we spin it out fast. Centrifugal force throws it out, and right into the jar, and we got honey. That's perfect frame of honey. Go ahead, Dave. And wax, they build the wax as well. So not only do they produce the honey, bring back the pollen, they make wax. They eat the honey and nectar, and what they do is they ooze wax right out of their wax glands, take it with their mandibles, their jaws, and shape it right into these perfect cells, six-sided cells, every one the same size. They gauge it with their mandibles. They're all the same size. Amazing piece of geometric work that they do. This is all built by the bees. That's their home. In here they put their young, they raise their young, they have pollen, they put their nectar, they store everything in here. So the wax is as valuable as honey to man. We use it, most of the man, we, make beautiful candles out of it, molded candles. I made this, put this in my wife's fish bowl and let it harden. She says, how are you going to get it out of there? And I said, with a hammer. and so anyway, she wasn't too happy, but beautiful molded candles. Then you can make different seasons, different colors. You shape them and roll them from the beeswax. Also from the wax, we make hand cream. Excellent. You can try some here after taking, put some of the hand cream on your hands. Now lately, they've been making, a lot of people finding honey soap. Smell this after when you come up, feel it. Beautiful smell to it. It's
I told you I said.
honey soap. And then, obviously, that's the wax. So a lot of people, as part of the hobby of beekeeping, make these different wax products. Some of you may have bought some, hand creams or lip balm. And of course, the last thing the bees bring back is what they call propolis. It's a sticky substance from resins, from pine sap, and they bring it back in their pollen sacs, and they glue everything up. Well, just recently, some of the studies have come out that this propolis has antiseptic qualities. They coat their hive with this stuff glued up because it's a medicinal use that they have. And in Europe, people for sore throats chew this. A lot more used here. The pharmaceutical companies kind of squash any natural type of stuff. For instance, with the honey, with allergies, the Medical Association just recently came out and said it's good for allergies. If you take a teaspoon a day, local honey, it builds up a tolerance in your body. Well, the pharmaceuticals tried squashing that quick, but they couldn't. And sales of pharmaceuticals for allergies went down 18%. So propolis is used, it's a glue. That's why we need a hive tool like this to pry up the frames, because they glue them all up. This is called a hive tool. And that's the pattern. This is how they build the pattern. Honey at the top, then pollen, and then all their young bees. That's a perfect pattern of a frame. And that's what a beehive looks like at the end of the summer. 3 boxes of honey on top of the hive where they raise their young. They raise their young in the 2 bottom frames, 2 bottom boxes. And up here, this is all the honey we take off. Like last year, I got about 50 pounds a piece from my 120 hives.
Hi there.
So I got 120 hives that I run, and I got about a 50-pound average from each of the hives. So you can make it a little business, and of course, honey, local honey has never sold like it has since the Medical Association came up and said it works for allergies. You can't keep up with the demand. Dave can tell you, I've got everything just to keep up with the demand. People take a tablespoon a day, and what it does is builds up a tolerance in your body to the local pollens. So when pollen season comes in the spring or the fall, your body is tolerant. You may have a little effect, but not like matter of fact, I had a number of teachers at the high school where Mr. Bouchard and I taught. They used to buy it for me on a regular basis for their allergies. Go ahead, Dave. And every once in a while, they produce a new queen. They build a queen cell, looks like a peanut. And they build a queen cell, they put an egg in there, and they feed it royal jelly. Go ahead, Dave. And what happens is just before the new queen hatches, the old queen flies out with half of the bees in a swarm. And what you get is about 20,000 to 30,000 bees. How many have ever seen a swarm in a tree or a bush? Raise your hand. How many have seen a swarm of bees? Well, not too many. Usually you find it, and this is the time of year. I've been getting a lot of calls, hey, I've got a swarm of bees, I got a swarm of bees. Big cluster, you can see there on a tree, and they stay there for a while, in about a day, they find a new home, either in a tree or in somebody's house, in the walls. They like wood, so they go wherever there's wood to make a new home. That's the way bees multiply, by swarming. We try to stop it, of course, as beekeepers, because if we lose the bees, we don't get as much honey, because half of the bees leave, and they have to build back up again, so we don't like it, so we do swarm prevention. We're stopping nature from doing its thing, but when you keep 120 hives like I do, if I let them all swarm and don't get any honey, why am I putting in all the effort of keeping the bees? I do swarm prevention so I can get honey. Go ahead. And that's, now, coming to the table here, go ahead, one more. I just wanted to point out the yellow jacket versus the honeybee. Notice the yellow jacket is bright yellow, black, shiny, no hair on it. A lot of people confused. They call me up, oh, we got honeybees. Big gray nest. Those are yellow jackets. They're aggressive. So unlike the honeybee, which is very docile, they can tell you, I work the honeybees, no veil, t-shirt, don't bother me at all. They don't sting as long as they know you're not hurting them. Yellow jackets, on the other hand, or wasp ponds, are aggressive. So people confuse honeybees, and honeybees get a bad name of stinging, but they don't really sting you. 90% of the chance that when you get stung, it's going to be a yellow jacket, a wasp, or a hornet. It's not a honeybee, because honeybees flying out, if they're out on the flowers and you walk through, they just fly off and take off. They're not interested in stinging you. Now, if you try banging a hive and getting in a hive, they're going to sting. That's the way of defending. Oftentimes a skunk will come up the hive, scratch at the entrance, and the skunk likes to crush the bee and then eat it. Well, they get very defensive because there's somebody bothering them. And then, of course, a bear, we've had more and more now bears coming in, they just knock the whole hive over. So what's happening is we're getting a lot of bear damage where in this area we never used to. Douglas, so we had a beekeeper, lose a hive 2 years ago, I think it was. Uxbridge, we had 2 or 3 beekeepers lose this year. Hives from bears coming in. In Uxbridge, we had a situation with a bear taking down a hive. So the bears are there, they're looking to eat. After they come out of hibernation, go into hibernation, they love the young bees, which are high protein in the honey, and they destroy the hive. And so that's also leading to why we're losing our bees. You know, between this little mite, this little mite that goes on and kills the bees. The study we're doing at Harvard with the pesticides, a killer bee, the new set of pesticides they're using that are systemic out there, and the bears, you know, the honeybee almost has no chance. So we're trying to, again, find ways to, go ahead, Dave. And here you can see that's my dad there with our part of our 120 hives that, you know, we always ran 120 hive beehives and produce honey. You've probably seen it at the markets down in Friendly Liquor or Kelly Farm or Foppamas, My Honey, and they spread it all over, you know, the honey. And honey comes, you can see, in different colors. Notice here, there's 3 different types of honey. Now I can tell you what, this is cleftle. Right here in Douglas in Long Lake State Park, there's a plant that grows at the beginning of August on these bushes, white spike. It's called sweet pepper bush or cleftle. I put 6 hives in there doing that below, and then extract it, and you get this light honey called sweet pepper bush honey. It's just elegant, and that comes around August. Then over here, this is black locust, where I keep my hives in Worcester. There's these trees with those big white clumps you saw about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago flowering. I put my hives, I've got hives there. I produce this black locust honey. It's got a nice blend, that and Russian olive. So that's a particular honey. And finally, where I keep my hives, another location there in Hopkinton, Upton, Hopkinton line, I got buckwheat. This is like a molasses tasting. It depends on the type of nectar that they get as to what kind of honey. Now I get these specialized, but for the most part, people buy my honey for allergies, so I mix everything together. So that way you get all the pollens from the area, and you don't have to stop picking and choosing. That way the goldenrod is in there, honey, the Joe Pieweed, the black locust, the maple honey, the blueberry, the apple, everything. It's a mix. So people all try. Now also from honey, a lot of people make honey wine. You ferment honey, and it's got a nice, you get sweet mead, dry mead, but it's made from pure honey. And just an elegant, something like this sweet mead with strawberry shortcake, just, oh, you know. And more people are starting to make mead, which is, in Egyptian days, only the pharaohs had this because honey was rare in Egypt because it's desert out there mostly. So not that much honey. All the honey had to go to the pharaoh. And he produced mead, which was a drink of the gods. And we produce it today. So a lot of people are doing, and there's different types of dry mead, there's sweet mead, and it's made from pure honey. And it can get you drunk if you're wondering. About 15% alcohol, and I was going to share some samples, but the director said they'd get drunk and then we'd have problems. Now also, somebody's just tried this mead jelly. I'll put some little sticks out after coffee stirrers I have, and you can try some of the honey mead jellies. It's from the mead, and they make jelly out of it. Wonderful. It's a new product. Just came up. One of our beekeepers just started producing it, and it's a wonderful product. So all these products are produced by the honeybee, and like you said, like the beekeeper says, the best thing about beekeeping is the fact that they go out there in the beehive. When you're in that beehive, you forget about everything else. You forget about everything else because you're so engrossed in watching the nurse bees, watching the house cleaning bees, watching all the field bees coming in and out with their pollen, taking off their pollen, that you forget about everything. I had this a young lady came out with me 3-4 years ago now, and she came out and spent the day with me and inspected beehives. That's one other thing I inspect for the Department of Food and Agriculture beehives all summer. And I said, Rebecca, what do you do? She said, I'm the chief psychiatrist at UMass Medical. I said, oh, did they send you out here to see if I'm nuts or not? And she said, no. She says, it's such a stress reduction. She says, you wouldn't believe how stressful a psychiatrist's job is. You always listen to people's problems, trying to solve. She says, I come out here, she says, you know, it's so peaceful, I forget about everything and work the bees. And so, you know, like I said, a lot of people do it for a hobby because they love the bees, watching them. They sit out there with their chair and watch the bees come in and out of the hives, just watching them. And then for some, the hobby becomes a lifelong passion. I don't know if some of you may know Stash Traklevich. and Blackstone. I'll tell you, share to end it with this story, then take a few questions. Stash knew my dad when Dad comes down from Blackstone. He beekeeping from a young guy just like me. About 7 years ago, I think now, 6, 7 years ago, his daughter and his wife called me up and said, Ken, Stash has got to go into the nursing home. He won't go because his bees. So I went down and talked to Stash in Blackstone. I said, Stash, what's the problem? You gotta go for your daughter. And he said, no, I'm not going unless I can take my bees. So I went up to the nursing home over there in Grafton, and I said, could I put a hive of bees? They said, absolutely not. Security reasons are, afraid of getting stung. So I went to the farmer across the street up there at Keith Hill, and I said to him, I said, would you mind if I put a hive of bees here? I got a gentleman that won't come in unless he gets his bees. So you know what? I went down, they said, yeah. I went in, saw Stash at his house, his wife and his daughter went in. I said, Stash, guess what? I can put the hive of bees across the street. His face lit up from ear to ear. He went to the nursing home, and I said, I'll come by once a week.
Hi, Patrice.
Take you out to
What do you
dinner.
want?
And that summer, and then part of the next summer, I'd go there. I'd go down the hallway. I can still remember him, that big smile. He's ready. He's in his wheelchair. I'd wheel him across the street, and this Stash trying to pick. I said, no, Stash, I'll do the lifting. Here, you find the queen. I take out the frame with the queen on it. I say, Stash, you find the queen. Stash, you could see the love he had for the bees. He'd be looking at that frame with all the bees, no veil, and Stash I'd go bring him back. He said, can we stay a little longer? Look at the bees. Some weeks I couldn't make it. He called, Ken, are you going to come home this week? I said, Stash, I can't. I could feel the dejection in his voice. And, about a year and a half later he passed away. He left a beautiful letter to me, dear Ken. I know you went out of your way for the past year and a half and helped me out so I could have my bees. He said, I want to leave all my beekeeping stuff to you. And this hive, he says, take care of it. And you know what? This is 6 years later. That hive is still alive in South Grafton. Dave knows where it is. It's Stash's hive. Every time I go there, I look up, I said, Stash, there's your hive. Because he told me, he said, please keep it alive. So you could see the love, just like people for their pets. Stash is a perfect example of somebody, a lifetime beekeeper. They love the hobby of beekeeping. And that's what it means to some people, just to give you an idea. Just like anything else, he loved his bees. And I'm glad I could keep his hive alive. But it's an interesting hobby, and most people start in their older years, but some people like Stash, myself, we started when we were 4 or 5 years old, had our own hives, and have been keeping them ever since. I love it. I'm out there, I'm the state bee inspector, I've been doing part of the Harvard study, I was part of the USDA study. I'm up there, I used to be up there here as students with student council and coaching, and now I'm up there here with honeybees. And like I say to people, I don't know which one's worse. One talks back to you, one stings. So with that, I'll take some questions, and you can then come up and take some hand cream, try the jelly here, and we'll even put the sticks out. You can try one of the honeys here, which you dip in with the coffee stirrers. And any questions anybody has before we do this? Anybody that...
How many blooms go into a pound of honey about?
How many what?
Flowers, the nectar from flowers.
Well, no, it's 16,000 trips. 16,000 trips to make a pound of honey. A jar like this is a pound of honey. 16,000 trips back and forth by honeybees to make a pound of honey. Anything else that, if you want to know about honey? Yes.
When you buy the honey in a market, do they put preservatives in it?
That's processed. Most of the honey, those are the big companies, they process it because they don't want to crystallize. And natural honey will crystallize because it's fructose, sucrose, and it's natural sugars that all combine and they crystallize after a while. Well, big companies don't want any part of that because people think it's spoiled, but it isn't. See, this is crystallized right here. You can use it as a spread. A lot of people put on their pancakes. Every morning on my oatmeal, I take drizzle honey, and then I take some pollen and drizzle some pollen over the honey, maple pollen. I like the maple pollen. I keep trapped in the spring. Oh, nothing better on the oatmeal than honey and pollen together. If you're wondering why I look so good at 80,
What do you have to do to maintain the hives over the winter?
over the winter we leave them 80 pounds of honey in the hive, and we have to sometimes feed them sugar patties to keep them alive. Toward the end of the winter, like this year was a tough winter on bees. So long, if we didn't put some sugar patties in there to keep them alive until they could get out in the spring, a lot of them would have died. So you can't let them starve. If you don't have enough honey, bees can't keep the heat, and therefore they freeze. Bees can go about 4 days without food, without honey, and then they perish. Another little quick story. Dave and I were up in Framingham, where I keep the USDA hives I was managing as part of another study, Asian longhorn beetle. Some of you probably read about the Asian longhorn beetle in Worcester. The USDA started injecting trees with pesticides. So I was involved directing a study for 4 years on that one too, talking about bees to the max. And we were looking at the effect on the honeybees up there. But in that kind of case, the study still hasn't been published in Framingham. But a lot of people that look at the what was the original question there? Who was it that asked?
Wintering over, you were going to mention about the hive.
Yeah, about so what I was getting to is the wintering over. Here, Dave went out. One of the hives was almost dead. They weren't moving. I said to Dave, look. He said, what are you going to do? I went and made up a little bit of sugar syrup and drizzled it on. I felt so bad because I was responsible for having all these bees starved. I looked down at them. I said, look at those little brown eyes looking up at me. He said, why'd you do this to us? And I sprinkled some sugar. Dave could tell you. We closed it up. They weren't moving much. I went back the next day. All of a sudden, these bees all flew. I opened the cover. I was alone. They all flew up. They got on my hair. Not once. It was like a joy thing. They were walking on me. They came to life. They were just at the edge of death, and just enough. I sprinkled that sugar syrup and it saved them. I'll tell you, I would have felt. I feel guilty whenever my bees starve. Or I know it's my fault. I have a guilt complex, so I love my bees. So, but yeah, you have to keep them alive by feeding them sugar patties, and especially long winters. Anything else? Well, with that, I want to thank you, and you can come up here, and I'll get some coffee stirrers. You can try some of the jelly, try the hand creams, feel the soap. By the way, if you blow on these bees, put them there, you can hear them. Yeah, all you have to do is blow on them, pass around. You can look at them there. They're walking around. Those are live honeybees.